If you're designing for ADHD, the usual advice is make it calming, keep it neutral, but that's actually absolutely wrong. Because ADHD is not only about overstimulation, it's about arousal regulation, attention control, and how the brain filters information. So if a space feels too stimulating, then your attention fragments. But if it's too minimal, then your brain just checks out. So the real goal here is to create regulated stimulation, and that completely changes how color should work in interior design. Hi everyone, my name is Maria. I'm an architect specialized in interior design and neurodesign, the science of how spaces affect the way we think and feel. And my real goal is to help you to design your space, not only that it would look beautiful, but also that would make you feel good. Most people think that color is simply about hue, blue versus green, green versus red. But when it comes to attention, that's actually only one part of the whole story. Because what truly affects the ADHD brain is how the visual environment is put together. So for example, things like color contrast, saturation, visual complexity, pattern density, glare and reflectivity. That's why two rooms can use exactly the same color, but still feel very different to live in. Soft sage green can feel calming in one room and surprisingly overwhelming in another. And not because of the hue itself, but because of the contrast, brightness, patterns, and visual noise surrounding it. And on the other hand, a room can use several different colors, yet still feel organized and easy to process if those colors are structured thoughtfully. And the goal isn't choosing one single perfect color. The goal is actually to create the visual environment which would support your attention and not compete for it. When I design for an ADHD client, I never start by asking, what color do you like? I always start by asking, how do you want to feel in the space? Because different colors create different levels of cognitive demand. And the most successful ADHD-friendly palettes tend to share these three characteristics. They are slightly muted, they are inspired by nature, and they avoid extremes. For example, sage green, dusty blue green, warm grayish, soft taupe, and muted terracotta. These colors still provide interest, but they don't constantly demand attention. Why? Because lower saturation reduces attentional capture. In simple terms, your brain notices them, but doesn't get stuck on them, and that's exactly what we want. If there is one thing I want you to remember from this video, it's this. Contrast matters more than color. Most people blame the color, but often it's the contrast that's creating the problem. Take a typical modern interior: bright white walls, black furniture, strong geometric shapes. Everything is competing for attention. The eye just keeps jumping from one element to another. And for ADHD brain, that's just exhausting. Instead, I prefer layered contrast. A light wall, a slightly darker sofa, a slightly darker storage unit, enough separation to create structure, but not enough separation to create visual noise. Think of it like speaking. Good design shouldn't shout, it should guide. By now we have talked about color and we have talked about contrast, but there is actually one more layer which designers often overlook. It's a sensory load, because your brain doesn't experience a room one color at a time. It experiences everything at once. The textures, the reflections, the patterns, the objects, the visual movement. And sometimes a room can have a perfect color palette but still feel mentally exhausting, not because of the color, but because of the amount of information your brain has to process. And for people with ADHD, the visual complexity creates much more distraction than color ever will. Think about it this way. Every reflection asks for attention, every pattern asks for attention, every object also asks for attention. Individually they seem small, together they become background noise. And the ADHD brain are already filtering more information than they need. That's why reducing sensory load can often have a bigger impact than changing the wall color. Instead, look for matte finishes, soft textures, low pattern fabrics, visual simplicity. And not because minimalism is better, but because attention is a limited resource. Designing for ADHD is not about removing colors. It's about designing how your attention moves through the space. And once you understand that, you stop decorating and start creating environments that support how people focus, think, and feel.